Welcome to this episode of the Leading in Dentistry podcast. I'm Dr. Wes Eggett. After spending the last 20 years in a variety of leadership positions, and as a student of leadership myself, I started Leading in Dentistry to share what I found and to continue learning with you. If anything from this episode stands out, check out the show notes, our online courses, or one-on-one coaching on leadingindentistry.com. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Leading in Dentistry podcast. I'm Dr. Wes Eggett. For those of you new to the podcast, I am a practicing associate dentist just outside of Denver, Colorado, and I started Leading in Dentistry to help develop the leadership skills of each team member in the dental office, not just the business owner. And I started this podcast specifically while I'm not an owner of any dental practice, as I really want to get across the message that you don't need to wait until you're in charge to be a leader. Now, today on the podcast, we have a special treat. It is the first time we have shared an interview with someone on the Leading in Dentistry podcast. And today our interview is with Zach Shelley. Zach is a practice manager in Florida. He's been in dentistry for about 15 years and recently spoke at Dental Intel's IntelliCon. We had a great discussion, great conversation. I'm really excited to share it with you, so let's get to it. Welcome back to another episode of the Leading in Dentistry podcast. I'm Dr. Wes Eggett. Today we're meeting with Zach Shelley. Zach is an office manager, and that is pretty much all that Zach and I know about each other. So we're going to jump right into it, and I'm going to have Zach start off with a little introduction. Zach, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Wes, for having me. I appreciate it. Super excited to be here and be a guest. So a little bit about me. I am a practice manager in Satellite Beach, Florida. We run a general and pedo office with 5 doctors. So we got 3 general dentists, 2 pediatric dentists, and we just rock it over here on the beach. I love it. I've been in dentistry for about 15 years. The beginning of my career, I started out as a dental technician, fabricating dental prosthetics. And then in 2020, I transitioned into practice management here at the office. And I've loved every bit of it. Dentistry is a big passion of my heart, and really just enjoy serving our patients and serving our community and giving them the best care we possibly can.
That's awesome. So just for everyone listening, we are recording this at the end of October 2024, and you're in Florida. How is everything going with the recovery from hurricanes and everything that happened the last couple of months?
Yeah, that's you get 2 things in Florida: a lot of heat and hurricanes. Those are 2 big, events that we deal with all the time. And it's we were blessed where we're at on the east coast of Florida. We're just south of the Cape. So they didn't build Cape Canaveral where they did for any accident. So we were spared pretty good. Lots of tree limbs and stuff, just waiting for, waste management to pick that stuff up. But on our end, we're doing pretty well. And it looks like the West Coast, they did get hit pretty hard, but they're recovering quickly. So just our thoughts and prayers are out with them, that they can get their businesses back up and going as soon as possible.
Very nice. So tell us a little bit more about the practice or practices that you're at. Are they right next door to each other? Are they kind of in the same building? And you said how many docs are there? What's the makeup of the team there? And just the reason why I asked this question is at Leading in Dentistry, the whole idea is to provide resources for leadership training for specifically not the business owner. Most organizations out there that do any sort of coaching or leadership training, it's all geared towards the business owner, and there's a reason for that. It makes sense. That's the person who knows they're going to be in the career for the long haul. They know that they have the financial resources to pay for coaching and things like that. But I know that the business owner would also be very appreciative if everyone on the team developed their personal leadership skills, because that's what's going to make everything multiply, go quicker, and go a little smoother. So from the team's perspective, that's more what I'm looking out for today, is to see what is the makeup of the team, and how have you, as you've stepped into leadership roles, how have you worked with the team in order to, be the leader without being the person who's the main boss, right? What does that look like? So yeah, tell us a little bit more about the team and what your role is there.
Yeah, this is a big loaded question, Wes. So we'll dive in one piece at a time. So the first is, so yes, we're in one building. We actually bought an old post office here in our area. It was vacant for a super long time. The practice used to be located across the street. And when they bought this building and expanded, we added the pediatric side. So we're in an 8,500 square foot building, and it's split down both sides. We have 23 operatories, and Two of the doctors, like I said, pediatric dentists are on one side with a team of about 13. And then on the other side with the general dentist, we have 3 general dentists, and there's a team of 11 hygienists. There's 6 assistants, 3 front desk, myself, that I run both sides. So we have a rather large team. We've got a little bit over 30 employees here. As you can imagine, we've got a little bit of a taste of every personality, right? We don't have a small dynamic team that everybody knows each other, super, super tight knit. And especially we have 2 specialties going on, right? So one thing that, really changed for me coming in was they had never had a practice manager in the office. So it was owner operator, and then his partner owns a different office in a different location. So he's not actively in this practice. So they're super used to the owner, making the decisions and being the dentist, which I think you could agree is one of the hardest things to do. And in my opinion, is the wrong way to do a dental practice, because if you're a dentist, you should be in the chair practicing and treating your patients and doing what you do best. So when I came in, there was definitely a dynamic shift and change where they're super used to the owner running everything, making all the decisions. So with me coming in, one of my tactics in leadership was, how do I build relationships with every one of my team members? How do I learn about them? How do I grow with them? Find what makes them tick? So what I've done to elevate my team is, I'm not a micromanager. I don't sit on everybody's backs. But what I do is, every one of my team will tell you, they're like, you're always around. And like, do you ever stop? And frankly, I don't. Those check-ins daily, multiple times a day. Hey, what do you need? Do you got everything you need? I can't sit behind a computer all day and not move. It's just not healthy for me. Right. It's not possible. I can't sit down. Some may argue I probably have ADHD or ADD because I cannot sit still. So what I do is I get up, I walk around, I check, and even if I don't even say, what do you need? My team knows if they turn around, they'll see me walking. I'll peek in a room really quick as I'm walking by, just to make sure everything's going good. I'll listen to patient conversations with my team. And one thing that does is it fosters a sense of, I always have my boss somewhere very close that I can get to him and get what I need if there's something that happens. Now, does it work every time? No, that would be a perfect world. But I do make myself available, and I do learn about my team. I don't just ask them like, hey, how are your patients today? I'll ask them how their weekend was, what they got plans for upcoming holidays. If their birthday's coming up, what do you plan to do for your birthday? What do you want for your birthday? Is there anything fun that you got planned coming up? Why are you going on a vacation? Like, is it with your husband? Is it with your wife? What do you got friends coming with you? I like to invest my time in them because we spend so much time with each other every single day that frankly, we spend more time with them than we do sometimes with our family during the 5 workday week. So why not spend that time to understand who we're coming alongside, who we're leading, and then elevate them, right? And get them on the same level. We're not successful if my team's not successful. And it's leadership will win and fail, no matter what. If we win, it's with the team. If we lose, it's because leadership failed. So that's really near and dear to my heart.
That's super interesting. You brought up something that I think we can dive into a little bit more about checking in with people. Are you familiar with Simon Sinek?
Yeah, I love Simon.
Yeah, I talk about his stuff all the time. I love Simon Sinek. And his story about trusting teams, where he was at the coffee shop in Las Vegas and he met the barista named Noah, and he said he loves his job, and he told him why. And he said, the people are always coming around, checking in to see if he needs anything, to see if he is having any issues that they can help out with. And then he said he also works at the other hotel at the Caesar's Palace, I think it was, where the managers are more coming around to see if they're doing anything wrong, trying to find them, getting, something to get them in trouble for. And so at the same person in 2 different places you can have a totally different experience with him as a barista because of the leadership. He said when you get the leadership right, you get people like Noah. But when you get the leadership wrong, you get people like Noah. It just depends who the leaders are and what environment he's in. But when you do that, so as I've heard that story like 100 times, I've always wondered, what's the different approach that those leaders use? How can the people that are being led feel like when you're coming around, you're really looking out for them? It's not some passive aggressive, like, are you on task kind of question, when you're going around and doing those rounds, how are you checking in? Is there anything that you're doing specifically to let them know that you're coming to check in on them with the best intentions, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. And it's funny because I'll tell you kind of two different ways, because one of my two newer team members didn't understand my style yet. So it's kind of a funny story. So I'll dive into that in a minute, but there's kind of one big word that I will put in the forefront of it, and it's intentionality. They're going to read in on what your intentionality behind that check-in is really quick. If you go in and say, hey, do you need anything? By the way, why are you doing that? Or, you're 5 minutes late. That conversation completely shifts. Then they know you're not checking in on me. You're checking on me.
Right.
You're trying to keep me accountable. When I'm
wow, I
hey,
love that. I'm gonna write that down. You're not checking in on me. You're checking on me.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Continue.
Yeah, no, you're good. So that's the biggest part there, because they're gonna feel that if I say, hey, Wes, you have everything you need. Yeah, I do. Are you sure? Okay. What else is going on? How's your day going? Are your patients, did you have good patients this morning? Did you have a good morning? Did you get your coffee today? Because I'm running to go grab mine. Follow it up with a secondary question. That's when they're going to feel that you're truly asking, do you have everything you need? Or if you walk by and they say, hey, Wes, you stop and you turn and say, yeah, what do you need? They may see you in the hallway and you're not even looking at them, but they need something from you. Stop, turn, and listen. And that will also, it takes time to build that, right? It's not just overnight. So this is something I've been working on over the last 4 years of this practice. So now it's very fluid and they know my style. But on the other hand, with new team members, right? I would check in on one of my hygienists and say, hey, you have everything you need? And she's like, did I do something wrong? And I'm like, no. I'm checking. She goes, are you sure? There was a patient I said, no. I'm not checking in on anything with your clinical skill or your job. I'm walking by to make sure that you have what you need to be successful today. I said, if there's an issue, and I'm very intentional about this, and I'm going to use that word a lot today, probably Wes, is I say, I want you to be successful in your day. So I want to make sure you have everything that you need. If there's an issue, I will tell you, and I will come in and say, hey, this patient just came through and they should have been a perio maintenance. Let's talk about that. Why did you bill out a prophy today? I want to just make sure that you understand our protocol and have that intentional conversation rather than, oh, I think he's mad at me. Oh, I think he's going to do this. And say, I'm going to be straightforward. I'm going to go straight to the point and we're going to talk about it. And if I talk to you about something, it's not because I'm mad. It's because I want to make sure that you know what we expect and set up those expectations. So I think that's super important to do that in leading your team, and that will build and foster trust and growth. And then in return, you have great culture.
Yeah.
So we always talk about this culture, and I'm not going to dive completely into that, but that's how you build culture, is through the intentional conversations and setting up expectations.
Yeah, and you have the relationship set up before you go and do all those check-ins, right? So they know they can read your intention because of the relationship that you've already built. It doesn't you don't begin with holding them accountable. You begin by building that trust first, right? Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to ask you a little bit about when you are, so you say you can't sit at the desk all day because you got to get around and do the rounds. But when you're sitting at the desk, we're in a position with our practice, and just so you know my context, I am still an associate dentist at a practice where they're growing from it was 5 chairs and 8 chairs, and now there's 14 chairs. And so one of the former assistants is in the position of office manager right now. And so we're going through that growth phase of figuring out, what exactly does the office manager do when they're at that desk, and she's got it figured out. She knows what she's doing. But for me, I'd like to wrap my mind around, as I'm talking to other office managers in other offices, how can I help people understand like what it is that you're supposed to be handling throughout the day? Because a lot of times you'll get stuck in the same tasks that you're familiar with, right? And a lot of times we want to do what makes us feel accomplished, and so we'll stick with the things that we've done before. But how do you level up as an office manager to continue doing things that are going to help the practice grow, right?
Yeah,
does that question make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I'm curious to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah, you're really good at loading big meaty questions. I love it. They're not shallow, they're super deep, and it's like, all right, let's grind in and let's get into
Right.
this.
The whole idea is not to overwhelm, is to give you like,
Yeah,
talk about any of this,
yeah, yeah,
whatever's
yeah.
next. Yeah.
So every day looks different, and I was kind of smiling and smirking a little bit as you're asking the question. The only reason
Sure.
is when I actually signed to come here, part of my contract states other duties as assigned, and we kind of
Sure.
laughed because we didn't know what the job would look like, honestly, because I'm the first practice manager here, and so I talk about it with Jonathan all the time. I'm like, so this is another duty as assigned, and we'll just laugh about it because we know it's just like everything extrapolates so much. So when I'm at my desk, there's a lot of different things that happen. I'm obviously in charge of making sure team gets paid, right? So on payroll weeks, I've delegated somebody to collect time cards, to enter it into my grid, and then I will oversee it and make sure that everything's been inputted correctly before it goes to our bookkeeper. So that's one of the certain things that I'll do. I'm looking at the schedule every single day, making sure where there are holes that my team is scheduling patients where they should be. If there's funky things on the schedule that weren't caught, I'll make attention to the front desk or the back staff, like, hey, this is what really needs to happen with this, or tell me what's going on with this patient. So you're kind of like that gatekeeper of anything and everything. So I'll make sure that everybody that's here should be here. My team members that I delegated schedule organization. So who's on today, who's not today. With the size of our team, we've got a lot of people. So there's got to be blockouts above columns. Like if Tammy's working for Amber, we've got to know that. The doctor's got to know that, because they're going to go to a room and be like, oh, I'm in the wrong room. Where did Amber go today? Nope, she's not here. And then why does it say it on the schedule? Setting up repairs for the office, talking with our repairs guys, get them scheduled. When can they be in that room? What time can they get here? Making sure everything that's functioning. Recently, we've rebuilt websites. We've linked up with a new marketing company. We're switching phone systems. I'm always talking with our IT, making sure that if anything goes down right away, I'm on with my IT getting it worked on. So the list, I could just go on and on and on and on. Sometimes I'm setting up lunch and learns and saying, hey, these are available dates. This is when you can come talk to Wendy. I have meetings with one of my hygienists, which is Wendy that I just spoke of. She does all the ordering in the office. She'll come in, we'll meet, we'll talk about where we're at on budget, what we need to order, what promotions we can utilize if we're under budget for future purchases. We talk for our pediatric side, we're doing events all the time. You've got to be super heavily involved in the community. So we're planning, what's the next event? Who are we partnering with? What's the city doing? How can we take over the events that they're doing? So it's just a revolving door of constant projects. I do write, any credits that go back to patients, I'm writing those and making sure that they reflect the account correctly, and having the owner sign them before they go out, and make sure that, that's just one thing that I make sure I do, because that's easily, where the company can lose money if it's not done correctly. So it's just one that I harbor. Doesn't take a ton of time, but just make sure it gets done. Blocking out doctors' times off when they're going on vacation, then coordinating with their assistants. What do you plan on doing at this time? Are you going to pick up with another doctor? Are you going to take off? All that fun stuff. Reviews for staff. That take forever. Looking for new team members, running job posts, coordinating with the marketing team, with our social media, making sure that's all running smooth. So it just goes on and on and on. And then one of the biggest things, because you can appreciate this, is as an associate, that's my other big job, is making sure my associates here are happy and investing in them. It's the same thing I do with the normal team. I check in with them all the time. What do you need? How are you doing? Is everything going okay? If there's any discrepancies on anything, please let me know. We'll sit and chat about it. Is there anything that you're struggling with, any team member that I can handle? Making sure that they have the support also. The average associateship is 18 months in a dental practice. It's kind of sad. We've had associates for over 5 years, and they're doing well and running strong, and they love it here. So I pride myself in that, because it's not easy to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is a comprehensive list. That seems to include everything that you could possibly do. But yeah, when you get those tasks, I know different tasks are going to find their way onto your to-do list in different ways. But just following the theme of the check-in, because I think that's something that's weaved its way through this conversation, is as someone has an issue and you're checking in with them, and those items get on your to-do list, one of the things that I've noticed before is that the person who really understands the problem is the person that you went and checked in with.
Mhm.
And I've seen before where, say that someone says, oh, this software is not working in this room and I need some help figuring it out.
Mhm.
They put that item on your to-do list as something that you need to do, but that person is the one that really knows what the problem is. So sometimes as an office manager, I would imagine that tasks get trickled up to you that you don't fully understand what the problem is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So sometimes you're trying to solve a problem where you don't really have all the context. And
Mhm.
how do you go about with things that, you're not the one who saw the problem in the first place? How do you go through and figure out what the real problem is and try to find a solution?
Yeah. Most of the time, the way it happens here is if somebody is having a problem, like say it is a software issue in a room,
Sure.
they're with the patient and they've told somebody walking by. So it's a secondary person that says, hey,
Sure.
and it ends up like telephone game.
Yeah.
And
And you end up calling the company and saying, I don't really know what the issue is, but can I have your help?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So my biggest go-to is I go straight to the source as soon as I possibly can. I'll make kind of like an eye contact. If they're with the patient, I'm like, see me when you're done. And then I'll come in and say, what is going on? Okay, like one thing I can say right now, we just upgraded our CareStream to a newest version, and we didn't realize that we were on an older version, but the newer version we didn't realize is an entirely new suite, like completely different. So we wake up, come into the day, I got everything done. I'm feeling like I rocked it. IT had everything done overnight, so we're starting. I just told everybody like it's updating, but it'll be all good. Everybody logs in, they're like, what is this? So I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I've got to troubleshoot this. And I make jokes all the time. Like there's, the old saying, jack of all trades, like, a little bit of everything, right? Master of none, but good at like, 100 million things. So I make jokes, and I have my AirPods say it. If you can read it, it's probably backwards, but it says Zach of all
that's great.
trades.
No, I see that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's engraved in my AirPods. They got me for Christmas one year. And so I do pride myself in being pretty handy with a lot of different things. So most things, at least over time, I figured out how to navigate and keep contacts in my back pocket and network with key people that I know on everything that we use. So I can get a single text out and say, this isn't working. How do we fix it? This is what it's doing. And I go through a system. So I'll find with whoever told me the issue is, and it can go same with employee to employee. Go to the source first and say, tell me what's going on. Okay. Then I'm like, look at it and say, do I need to call someone? Do I need to address it? Do I need to delegate? 3 different situations. If I need to call somebody, call that contact, and then move forward with my day and let them know, hey, this is being worked on. Hopefully we'll be done today. Switch to this room, or just limp your way along. You'll be fine without an intraoral camera for 24 hours. It's not ideal, but you can get through your day. So it just depends on the certain situation, because it's kind of loaded. The issues can be everything. We ran out of nitrous the other day because of the hurricane. We missed a delivery, and we had sedation the day before the hurricane. So it was, we run through a ton. So we had no nitrous. I have a rescue system, and they're like, well, only one doctor, can use it. And we just ran out. And I was like, no, we didn't run out. There's more tanks. Like there's rescue tanks and the surplus. I said, you ran out of oxygen. It's a fail safe. It will not run 100% nitrous without an oxygen flow. So I educate them, and I try to tell my team as much as possible. This is what happened. If this happens in the future, you have my permission to do this, because this is an easy fix. You don't need to come get me for it. But then there's, because there's all the time where they're like, nitrous won't turn on. I'm like, the scavenger button got turned off, so the regulator won't do anything. Like I want to educate you as much as possible, because I want you to know what you're doing. And if there's an issue, your patients can be like, oh, wow, they're super good. That wasn't working. They fixed it in like 2 seconds, rather than always having to bring somebody in. You ever watch Impractical Jokers? Have you ever seen that show?
I've seen it before, yeah.
So they have one of these skits where they're at a car dealership and they're like, all right, anytime somebody asks you a question, you have to go ask the manager, no matter what it is. Like, what kind of gas mileage does this get? Give me 1 second. Let me go ask my manager. And it was really funny to see these people sit there and they'd ask a question, and then it's, let me ask my manager. And then they come back and he answers the question. They're like, what about? And he's like, hold on 1 second. Let me go ask my manager. And he just keeps walking back and forth for every single question. And that's what I don't want my team or my patients to experience, right? Like, have the answers. And if you don't, just say, that's a great question. I'll get that answer for you. Give me a few minutes. Don't say, let me go ask. You know what I mean? So it's that's one that, like, I want to try and get a solve as quick as possible. So I've kind of put a lot of things in my back pocket to where I can navigate situations and issues pretty darn quick. We've never been down for a full day on pretty much anything, other than, even when we've had pump belts break. I order 3 pump belts at a time, because why? They can break at any time. You can have a brand new one fail tomorrow. So I order more than I need because they're not that expensive, and it's way easier to say, oh, that popped off and broke. Let's throw another one on. We're rocking and rolling. There's no issue. So I try to prepare myself in ways that will make these issues solve very quickly.
Awesome. Yeah, one of the things that I've talked about before is, we get so caught up in putting out fires, right?
Yeah.
The fire comes up and you race there with a bucket of water. But if I've been in highly forested areas before where I've seen one of the ways they solve that problem for the future is they remove the underbrush. They remove all the stuff that's going to create that fire, or that's going to cause that fire to come back with full force, right? So if you're solving a problem, also do something to remove the underbrush, right? Help someone else have the skills to solve that in the future, or try to solve the problem. If it's a one-time thing, just get it done instead of having to resolve it every single time. And if you solve a problem one way, either write it down so next time it happens, you can tell someone, go look at that document and figure it out, or you let them write it down so it gets a little better ingrained. So I love that. I do have another question for you about ADOM. So for the office managers out there, tell us more about ADOM and what that development was. So you joined the practice as a practice manager, and you hadn't been a practice manager before. So you had to grow into that role yourself and kind of figure out what you wanted to do. And then if I understand correctly, ADOM is a more recent thing for you. How did you go from the beginning to a place where you hit where you wanted to be, and then go through the ADOM process? What does that look like, and what can people look to gain from joining an organization like ADOM and all that?
Yeah. So it was funny. I knew nothing about ADOM until I was, reading over my contract with the office, and then one of the exhibits says, continuing education such as ADOM, ECT, and I was like, what's ADOM? And talking with the owners, it's the American Association of Dental Office Management. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And he's like, I don't know a ton about it, but I know it's there, and be something worth looking into. And probably the first 6 months, I first looked at it for a minute. I was like, yeah, cool. And just moved on with my day, right? Like, didn't really dig into it a whole lot. But once I started really diving into really learning what was needed and required and requested of me to do my job successfully, I started researching back into it, and I said, hey, I think this would be a really good fit for me, because there's a lot of online education. I can, get a lot of resources, and there's online forums that I can chat with other office managers, ask them questions, and connect and, grow with them on that. And so he's like, yeah, go for it. It's not expensive. It's like $150 a year. Like, it's not expensive to get a membership. So I'm a huge advocate for that. And so as I started learning and looking in there, they have a delegation program. And so in 2022, sorry, I'm trying to remember, it's back here, 2022, I achieved my fellowship with them. And one thing that I love about their delegation program is, at first I was like, I don't think I'm going to do it. And, there's some requirements in there. You got to be a practice manager for like 5+ years before you can even enroll, and or dental related. And I was like, well, I was a dental office manager or a dental lab manager for 11 years. And I called them. I was like, does that meet your requirements? And they're like, well, it's dental industry, yes, and you're leading team members and you're working with doctors, and absolutely that does. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I started doing that, and that portion of it, they make you do HR courses and financial reporting and AR, and starting to learn about the foundational things of like being in more of a COO role, like a full operations of an office, which I thought was like, that's super cool. So it kind of pushed my limits a bit and learned a lot of really good things. And then right after that, I was hooked. I was like, I'm going for my mastership. And so I started taking more CE. So it requires 100 hours of continuing education. It's just one requirement for your mastership. So it's a lot of work, right? And you've got to push yourself to learn and put yourself outside the box. But then you have to be a published author. So you have to be published 3 times. So you're having to write articles, and you're taking a writing course and teaching you how to structure things to get people to really be interested in what you're talking about. So it starts to grow you as being able to communicate well with people, not only in person, but on paper. And so now I'm currently enrolling my diplomat and on schedule and ready to rock and roll for next year to graduate in September. So I'm super excited on that, and just get into an elite status of, managers that have really pushed themselves above and beyond and past the mark. I'm super blessed to have owners that support my education, because that is one thing I feel like is not hit well in dentistry, is supporting office managers and practice managers to grow, because that's going to be one of your best ways to grow a practice, become more profitable, and just crush it. And that's what we've done here. They sent me to University of Florida to get my radiology and expanded functions in dental assisting. And then I also did an organizational leadership program through Harvard Business School. So there's never enough that you can get to continue to grow. But circling back to ADOM, they just rebuilt their learning management system. So part of your membership includes that. And the amount of CE and courses that's included in there is bar none. I mean, they have Office Manager 101 courses that'll teach you kind of just all the basics of it, dental terminology courses, just to teach you clinical side, just to start understanding it, because not all office managers come from the assisting or hygiene side. Some of them come from a front desk position they just slowly built over the years and then kind of inherited that position, but they really haven't had that other side of the clinical training to really understand dentistry well. And I'm big on, like, why do we do things? Like, why would a doctor come in and do a crown? What does he see on a radiograph to say you need to go out for endo? What is a periapical radiolucency? I know what it is, but like, what is caries? What is recurrent decay? What is burnout? What does that look like? And being able to know that and talk with your doctors, they're going to be like, whoa, this person's awesome. They actually understand dentistry. Doesn't mean they can cut teeth. No, they didn't go to school for that, but they can communicate it, right? And that's a big part of it. So I think ADOM has done Heather Kalicki has done an amazing job at getting dental office managers the education that they need to grow and manage well and have a community to do it together. And then their conference is just, it's the biggest conference I go to every year. And it's just absolutely amazing, the relationships I've been able to build and grow with them.
That's awesome. So as you've gone through and started this process with ADOM and developed over the course of the time that you've been with them, is that what got you into, doing interviews like this and getting involved with presenting and things like that? Was part of that push from ADOM to help you grow and develop?
Yep. Yeah, that's where I made most of my contacts, was through ADOM conferences. That's where I met up with all my best friends that are not in the office, but are with other companies that I help support and promote. And it's been the first avenue that drove that in there. They were the first ones that I ever published an article with. And I want to say they're one of the first I've ever recorded anything with. And they're very intentional, great people that run that organization.
Sure. Awesome. And then after that, you've developed some resources and a community, at least on Facebook yourself.
Yes.
Before we close, can you tell us a little bit more about that and how people can learn more about what it is that you do and how you do it, so they can get involved and kind of get a part of this ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. So my group is called Dental Office Manager Success Network. It's on Facebook. It's super easy to find. And it's a community that I want to have that abundance mindset of sharing what I've learned throughout the years, not only as a dental office manager, but even a dental lab manager. I've been able to learn about dental practices on a whole different side that most people don't ever see as a dental technician coming in and working with patients. So this group is meant to foster growth between office managers, but also just a place where they feel comfortable asking those questions of, hey, I really don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me? I want to come alongside you, encourage you, help you grow, give you tips and tricks. And I've written some small series in there to encourage, just effective leadership. We'll drop this podcast in there when this goes live.
Great.
I try to put anything and everything that I do will be dropped in there, whether it's an interview, a podcast, if it's other companies that I partnered with that I truly believe in. They are people that I work with. It's not just somebody saying, hey, promote my company. I am very intentional about what I do and who I work with, and I want that to be reflected of how I manage. So it's been a really fun ride. It's been a great group, and if people want to join, I'd love to have you and talk about dentistry and management and how we can be better each day. There's plenty of dental practices, and there's plenty of information that we all can learn and we can grow. We don't need to hide all that from each other.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time. I think that's a great way to get to the end here, but I do have a final question for you. Just
Yeah.
regarding your time in dentistry, your time in leadership, if you were to give one tip to the people out there, if you were to say this thing is going to move the needle more than anything else, what would those closing words be?
Man, you're a heavy hitter with questions, Wes. I love it because that's so loaded. It's so
Dig
hard to
deep,
pick
dig
one
deep.
thing. You know, don't worry what everybody else you may think they are thinking. Do what you truly feel is best for your team and do it well. Follow through with what you say you're going to do. And I promise you'll see an abundance of growth in that. I think that's one big thing that I've learned.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Zach. Really appreciate it. And appreciate your patience as we work this out. This is the
Heck
first
yeah,
interview
dude.
on the Leading in Dentistry podcast, and it was a home run. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's it for this episode of the Leading in Dentistry podcast. If you learned something today, please leave a 5-star review and share the episode with a friend. If you're ready to take the next step for yourself or provide leadership training for a team member, visit leadingindentistry.com to check out our online courses and one-on-one coaching.